If you've lived in Kenya for a while, you've probably heard this term, mshamba, and the term describes me perfectly. I spent the first 14 years of my life living in a village. The village is all I knew. And when I visited my aunts, uncles, and cousins in the city for the first time, this term was laid bare on me. Wewe ni mshamba, just based on everything I was doing. I had problems changing channels on the TV. I didn't know exactly how these modern toilets work. I'm used to pit latrines. Apparently, on the carpet, you're supposed to walk barefoot. Like being barefoot in the house was just not a normal thing in the village. Apparently, you're not supposed to spit in the sink. I thought it looked like a place where you could just spit. I had tasted something, like I'd eaten something and I didn't like the taste, so I went and spit it out in the sink. And I remember my cousin being very angry that I spit in the sink. I think she wanted me to spit in the toilet at that time. So my shampoo was coming out, and it's not a nice word. It's a derogatory term, and I will not say it's totally Kenyan or African. Even in the Western world, they when they call you a villager, they're saying a lot about you. You may be white and everything, like everyone else living there, but if you are not able to deal with modern life in the city, someone might just be like, "Oh, this villager knows nothing about this life. He's not fit for this life." So it's the same here, and it's not necessarily just used by people living in Nairobi or any other big city uh, to put down people who are coming from the village. It's not used in the village itself by people who feel they are a bit better than the others because they have been more exposed. Maybe they have lived in Nairobi for like 2, 3 months. Maybe they have never lived there, but they travel once in a while. Maybe they have a car, not a nice car, just a car. Like, you know, it's not a common thing to have a car in village. Maybe they have a stone house instead of a mud house like everyone else. Maybe they use electricity instead of uh, kerosene lamps. There are all these small things of people living in the village that might make them feel like they are better than everyone else because of that. And for some reason, no one wants to be associated with this term, no matter who they are, where they are, or how accurately this term actually describes them. And I was one of those people. I didn't want to be called Amshamba by anyone for any reason. So it got me angry, and I was trying really hard to make sure I don't do anything that would make me classified in that group. I would change what I was listening to on the radio, try to watch the things that I didn't enjoy at all on TV just because it's what people in the city like watching. I would be playing games, telling stories that I had no idea what I was talking about because my stories were about how I was running after the cows after the neighbor found them eating maize in the farm, or about how a neighbor's dog caught a hare and we stole the hare from it and didn't give it anything. Like we had stories that the crops are now drying up because it's apparently it was too cold. Like the stories in the village. Like I was trying to avoid those stories and talking about these international celebrities, these English radio stations with playlists from artists all over the world, like television series that I thought people of the city would relate. Just everything. And all the time I would get these like, your stories are not interesting. Like, because I was out of touch. That's the problem with denying your identity to take another identity. You are an outsider in your own body at that time. So I'll tell jokes and I'll be like they're not funny because I'm trying to tell urban jokes while I haven't lived a life. I remember them talking about cartoons they were watching as kids. I didn't watch any cartoons as kids. So I had no stories to tell. Most of the time I would be quiet. And when you're quiet so much, people poke you and all that. So you have to say something, and you have to find something to say quick, and you have to ensure this thing you say does not get you outed as this mshamba, this villager. So it was a hard time. It was a hard time adjusting, and finally at age 14, I joined high school here in Nairobi. It's called Starehe Boys Center. You've heard about it. It's dead center in the city. A place called Ziwani, heading to Isli, very close to the CBD. It's a walking distance. I used to walk from the city to school, and now I was determined to become a city boy at that time. Yeah, I was, and I was never going to be called I'm Shamba anymore. And I don't want to go through everything I did, but I did everything that I was not supposed to do. And if you are struggling with this thing that you're from a small village and you're trying to fit into the city and you're trying to behave like people of the city, it just comes out as inauthentic. It comes out as unoriginal. It comes out as fake. And it lowers your self esteem more than it raises it. It takes a hit on you as a person. You may start hating yourself. You may start becoming suicidal. You may not be happy even if you get the title that you're looking for, this title of being from the city. But I don't think you realize that when you're starting this, because at least there is one guarantee you have that when you go back to your village, people will not call you mshamba anymore. People respect that. If you have lived in the city for a while, they elevate your class. But the problem is, this is just a facade. It's just a temporary image you have in your brain. And you don't want to go continue living in the village anymore with these new status. You want to live in the city and be described and be accepted as someone of the city. But do you think the city will ever really accept you, no matter how long you spend your time there? At some point, your story will break down. And my story used to break down a lot. Because you can only put on yourself too much of something that isn't you before that image shatters and reveals your true self. So I was quiet most of the time. I'll be asked, "Why are you so quiet?" I will smile, maybe look aside. And when the silence is uncomfortable, someone will change the topic to something else. And I survived 4 years of high school. No one really called me Shamba or anything. I was careful to pronounce the words very properly because that's usually a big sign of someone from the village. It's how they pronounce their words. Very careful on what I pronounce so that I don't pronounce it the way Shamba would. Everything, the things I bought, uh, I started wearing deodorant at that time. Not like I felt like doing it, but I felt that would cement my place in the city. And even when I went back home, I was engaging people in high level conversations of the city. And I became unrelatable. And things got worse. Things got worse when I got out of the country. I went to Toronto in Canada at that time. I also wanted to prove I belonged. Now, now things of Nairobi were no longer the biggest deal that I had to deal with. I had to fit in into this new environment. I had to choose: do I act like a white person? Do I act like a black American? Because I think those were my two options at that time. Or I could act Asian even if my mind is not working very properly. But yeah, so I started behaving like this. I didn't know how to behave like, but I definitely didn't want to behave like myself. And I remember talking to people, and this really made me feel bad. Because every time I talked, I was talking in English and they would keep saying pardon. My accent was the problem. They were not getting what I was speaking because of my accent. So now I had to learn a new accent. And you know just how fake it is. When I tried to say Toronto instead of Toronto, because that's how they pronounce it, something like Toronto. And then instead of saying 2020 is 2020, like It just sounds weird when you try to say it. I got some was able to capture, like, I think they are not dinosaurs, they are dinosaurs. They are not buffaloes, they are buffaloes. A few things I caught on, but the accent was too much. I felt like, I know they might understand what I'm saying, but who am I after that? Who have I become? But feeling that way didn't stop me. I completely changed what I was searching online, even. Like the movies I was watching were so foreign to me. The people I was watching on YouTube were just foreigners. The people I was interacting with, foreigners, and I couldn't fit in. So it was this difficult image I was placing on myself. And every time I would try to have a conversation with someone, I remember they would bring up something that I don't know. Their childhood, primary experiences, which were very different from mine. Their high school experiences, which are very different from mine. And their college experiences, which are very different from mine. I didn't join any clubs or frats or things like that. But those are things they would talk about. And just the way they view life is just different. So I felt out of place. I felt segregated. I felt left out, and I wasn't enjoying this new identity. And it's only after I came back home to Kenya that time that I met someone. He's African, was by descent, but he has spent more than 27 years in the United States. He's not Kenyan. He was from South Sudan and he had come to visit. And I had conversations with him. I did have conversations with him. I had a lot of conversation with him about Canada because Canada is very close to the US. So those were interesting conversations. I had conversations with him about US and all that. I'd been there a few times, three, four times, I guess. Those were interesting conversations. But then I had conversations with him about Nairobi. And amazingly, those are the ones that he really wanted to hear. He didn't care about my conversations in New York or Washington DC or in Toronto, Montreal. Those weren't very interesting to him. My Nairobi lifestyle was what made him want to hear more from me. And I was surprised. I was like, I've been trying to keep this image up, yet whatever I find easy to do is what people actually appreciate. So I went further. I started telling him the stories from my village. And I have never been so surprised. Those were the stories he wanted to hear from morning until evening, asking so many questions. He was laughing and smiling all the way. I was like, I never met anyone in Kenya who is interested in hearing my mshamba stories apart from this guy. So I really questioned my identity. I'm like, what? Why did I leave behind my village identity? Because I realized that's what makes me special. That's what makes me who I am. It's not being from Nairobi. It's not being from Toronto. It's not being from New York or Washington DC. It's being from my small village in Yandaro. That's what makes my story special. That's what makes me unique. I am inseparable from that. And I'm only genuine and real when I accept that part of me. That when I let it seep through this facade that I'm trying to create, when I let it define me and my choices, people may not understand what I'm doing because they haven't grown up in the same environment as me, but they appreciate me being myself like they are being themselves. Because for him, he's not trying to be American. He's actually American. American is all he knows. When I try to be American, I'm acting. I'm an actor that time. I'm not living. I'm not being my true self, my real self. But when I speak about the village, I'm myself. I'm proud. I'm happy. I don't even know how to explain the feeling, but it made me change my mind a lot. It made me open up. I don't. I feel less bad when I say that from a small village because I know just that how much that is great for me and for my identity. Thank you.